Hello everybody. How are we doing? I'm here. Am I here? I am here. Okay, we got everybody. No audio mic issues? I don't know. Hopefully not. I know I did spot it, but I saw where it was coming from. I just couldn't figure out what it was last time, and I'll tell you if you're interested. On our video capture card, it's got multiple inputs. You could have the embedded audio, which would come from this camera via the HDMI, via the mic. AES, which comes from this X32, which is what it normally does, and also analog audio. And what I did was basically somehow switched it back to embedded audio, so that's why you were getting the room mic, and I just could not figure it out, but now I know where it is. So yes, there are no mic issues this week. Correct. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Yeah, check. What I'm going to try and do, it's really hard for me to get my levels correct. So what I'm trying to do is figure out how to monitor 1 2 myself loud enough in my headphones and not overpower my guests. Anyway, there we go. I did have a little, I don't know if you've is it this one? No, it's not. Hello and welcome to another Sonic Lab. Today we're looking at the Moog. I'll try and say Moog, but Moog is my British default grandmother. Here it is. It's an analog monosynth semi-modular analog synthesizer from Moog, and it's their latest sort of new model. I mean, it's still using that kind of classic Moog synthesis techniques, and I must admit, when I first heard about it coming out, I thought, oh, does the world need another one? I wasn't all that excited, but I got sent one, and I have to say it feels really authoritative, beautiful, solid. It's a really nice piece of design work. It feels like it's a very pleasing piece of hardware. Right, it does look rather kind of Radio Shack, I know, but the idea was to make it like a combination of sort of classic analog mono together with a nod to their larger format rack modular stuff. Indeed, these modules aren't just a nod to those original modulars, they are actually the same circuit design. Although this is SMD technology rather than through hole. So we get the same CP3 mixer with all of that gain and burn. I'll show you a little bit more about that later. The 904 VCF is the same design, the 902 VCA and the 911 envelope. These are all taken from the original designs of that classic Moog modular stuff. And as you can see, all the knobs and the faders just feel very, well, one fader, feel very, very nice. I mean, they haven't spared any expense, it feels like, on the build quality. We've got a lot of patching capabilities. It's obviously normaled, as you'd expect, and a few twists beside. And in fact, you know, when I got it out of the box, it immediately sort of changed my mind a little bit. And I thought, actually, this feels really kind of something special. So how special is it? So let's start with the oscillators. They're in blue here, and we get the full waves. So if we look up here, we've got basically triangle, sawtooth, square and pulse width with variable pulse width sync between 1 and 2. Oscillator 2 is slightly different in that you can sync it. It's got a tunable frequency range and a linear FM in. So if we now look at what's going on in the scope, starting with a triangle wave, nice solid fundamental down there. You can see there's actually a good quality waveform. It feels very solid. If we take it up to a sawtooth, again, really nice shape to it, good sort of buzz, and it really does sound very Moogy. You know, there's no denying. It's got that kind of solid, weighty authority. Again, really solid, fundamental down there. If we take it up, I'm actually taking the waveform directly out of the wave out and into my scope, so it's not going through any of the other stuff. Let's take it up to a square wave. As you can see here, 32, 16, 8, 4, but I've also got octave shift. And we can modulate the pulse width, so and if I switch the wave over to the sort of skinny pulse width, it means that we can get that nice through zero. But it's got quite an interesting tail to it, but you can dial it in quite nicely. But again, these waves just sound really solid. And I should point out that if you bring up that second oscillator just about halfway, worth mentioning that this is in fact goes from 16 to 2 and plus or minus about a fifth. So if we now bring both oscillators in, we'll take the pulse width off this one, you can start to hear the effects of what the CP3 mixer does, which adds all this additional drive. And that is the feature of the CP3. You know, it provides all this additional distortion, and it was a feature that was kind of has been heralded as one of the sort of, it's almost like as much of the Moog sound as perhaps the filter is, the classic filter. And you're getting access to this in effectively, you know, a synthesizer of this price, because it is the same circuit. But you know, if you don't want the drive, then you definitely want to be the other side of 12 o'clock. If you do want the drive, it adds up. So if you've got 3 inputs coming in, they're all cranked, then you're going to get more drive out of it. But it's very much a character of the original Moog modular stuff. Now, before we get onto any filters or anything, one thing that's really cool is the LFO is actually very powerful. As well as being an LFO, we can actually take the keyboard CV out, take that into the rate, and it will track CV extremely well. Then we'll take the wave out here and we'll go into the mixer, into the noise section. So I'll turn everything else down and now turn this up, and we come back up here, I'll tune it. Let's take that out of there so we can see the wave out of it as well. So we can see nice clean wave. So let's try the ramp down. A little bit trickier to get it tuned just right, because you're effectively using the rate knob. Though there is a little fine-tune trick, and you press the shift button, which is the central button here, and then adjusting the knob gets you fine-tuned, so it's easier to tune it against the other oscillators. And of course, that is one thing that means you can do, is you can create 3-note chords. Maybe put a bit of filter on that. You have to make sure, obviously, that you're being very careful with the levels, because of the CP3 mixer is going to blow up, but I can show you what that's going to sound like. Kind of fairly grungy, isn't it? So let's get on to the filter. This is the filter section here in a sort of fetching lime green, and as is usual, what we'll do is we'll start with a let's just do a sawtooth into the filter and give it a sweep. It's got that classic Moog kind of blat, that sort of brassy, that's only the thing that a Moog does. Yes, this also has that kind of classic ladder filter characteristic, and that is bring the resonance in, all that bottom end disappears, but you get that real kind of quack. would have maybe liked to have seen a little deviation from the classic ladder, maybe put a compensation switch, because some ladder filters, what they do is they're aware that the bottom end drops off, so they add an extra circuit which adds this kind of bottom end emphasis, so you get a much smoother frequency response. So you still get the resonance, but the bottom end doesn't drop off so much. So maybe it would have been nice if there could have been like a switchable circuit here to be kind of classic ladder filter, or the standard ladder filter response. So that missed a little bit of a trick there, but I can sort of forgive it because the rest of it does sound so good. So while we're doing this, let's get a bit more of the other stuff involved. So we'll get the envelope involved here. And it's quite interesting because the envelope, we've got a switchable keyboard track here, by the way, 1 to 2 off, or 1 to 1, and we can get really nice and snappy envelopes. And they've got this. This was really quite interesting because this is a very light fader. It's sort of like a DJ fader, and but weirdly it's on the sustain. It would have made more sense to me to have this on the decay. I suppose you can kind of play it like that. It's an interesting idea, and I kind of like the idea of it, but like I say, it would have been made more sense for me anyway to have it on the decay portion. But maybe I'm just not using it right. Another little trick I want to show you, if we don't want to drive the filter all that hard, we can come out of the VCA output, the CP3 output, into the input, and then come from the output into the filter, which gives us attenuation on the amount of drive that goes into the filter. And by the same token, we can also take the velocity of the keyboard out and go into the envelope amount. So velocity will now play a part in how wide the filter opens, but it means that we can have a little bit of variation in how we want to have the filter driving. So we can go, maybe take it down so the CP3 is not really doing all that much. Or we can drive the CP3 hard, but not the filter hard. And then if we drive the filter hard, we get all that extra sort of low harmonics into the filter, and it just adds a different, we can mess around with the drive structure of the CP3 and also the filter separately. So let's take a look at the rear connections. We've got a power switch and a 12-volt DC power supply, which is an inline version which has an IEC connection, not a figure of 8. There's USB for MIDI, which is class compliant, little MIDI indicator to show you're getting some MIDI. Nice to see in, out and through represented on full jacks there. We've got the sequencer collections here, clock output for driving external kit, reset in so you can re-trigger the sequence at a particular point in time, sequencer on and off, and an external clock input. Then we've got reverb out, which is kind of wet output, then Eurorack out, which is essentially just the main output but on an 1/8 inch jack, audio input on 1/4 inch, audio output on 1/4 inch, that's not balanced, that's just a straight jack, and then finally master tune on a little tiny knob here for tuning the whole instrument. We'll bring in the third oscillator stroke LFO, come out of there, go into let's go into the attenuator, because the attenuator is quite useful. So we're going to the attenuator, then we'll come out of the attenuator and into the linear FM, because it is quite possible to audio rate mod these oscillators by varying them. I'm going to use this, but I could easily use one of the other oscillators. And linear FM in, now I did read up on this. Essentially there are two ways. You have an exponential and linear NFM. Exponential, the voltage response is like this. In linear, it's more like this, which is what you get in a DX7, which means it's easier to dial in sort of tuned amounts, so it feels more musical somehow. And it's usually only common in digital synths, so to have it in an analog synth is a nice touch. Right, so I'm also going to bring in the sequencer to play, because this is another thing that's worth checking out. The sequencer there's a 3 pattern sequencer, each with 256 steps. You can play the order forward, backwards and random. So I'm going to go forward, I'm going to hit record into sequence 2, and now I can just play a sequence in here. So I'm just going to see if I can play this. You can put rests and what have you in, but I'm not going to get into that. Right, so now I go into sequence mode, press play, which is down here on these buttons, and hold, and if I press go on the keys, we can start to kind of get here to dial in positive and negative amounts of FM. Bring the resonance up. So that covers the sequencer. I mean, also there's an arpeggiator in here, which is quite nice. But you can get to feel the filter's got that. There's an old Monty Python sketch where 2 blokes are talking about what sounds, what sort of qualities words have, and people say, oh yes, that's a very woody word, that's a very tinny word, and this sounds woody. It's got this kind of like solid, organic feel to it, and you know, oh yes, okay, it's not getting me that when the resonance kicks in and the bottom end goes out. Yes, it does the Moog thing, but it's got a very creamy kind of vibe to it, and it feels very nice. While we're on the subject of the, I'll have to stop it there. It's overrunning a little bit. We have Mr. Matthew Hodson, who's at his, oh look, he's got a, is that a Moog in the corner by you there, Matthew? Hello, 1, 2, can you hear me? No, don't think he can. So we're obviously having a little bit of audio stuff. Hello, Mr. Matthew Hodson, come in, please. No? Okay, that's interesting. Hello, Matthew, can you hear me? Not hearing anything. I don't think maybe you can't even see me. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Hello, Matthew. Can you hear me? I can't. Hold on, Matthew. Let me hear. Can I hear you? Can you give me some volume, Matthew? Hello.
Haven't got no sound coming to me, mate. Can't hear you.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm definitely going out to you.
Just make sure I've got sound from the internet. Just going to restart the browser, mate.
Okay, all right, no problem. Back in 5 or less. Are we twins? No, I don't believe we are, but I take your point. So, yeah, that was a little bit of preview of the Moog Grandmother, or Moog Grandmother. Uses the same oscillators as the Mini Moog. Says, oh no, that says Marshall Arnold in the YouTube chat. I'm going to try and get the social chat working today a little bit. So,
Nick,
yes, I can hear you.
That's bizarre.
I can hear you.
You can hear me? Can't hear you?
That is weird.
Cannot hear you at all.
Right. Okay.
Why can't I hear you? Hang on a second. Doing something wrong. Just see if I can hear anything.
Okay. for having an audio moment. There's Gaz. We'll see if it works, because then Gaz will possibly not hear me.
Headphones.
Can you hear me, Gaz?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. All right. Thank you, Gaz. You've confirmed
it's
not
end.
me.
Okay.
Gaz, your camera looks like it's lost its calibration a little bit. I don't know whether that's quite...
Okay.
You've got like a little preset that you usually use that makes you look excellent.
Let's try this.
Way, look at that. Sudden flesh tones and contrast.
Is that a bit too much flesh tone?
I don't have too much. Hold on a minute. There's a title already and we haven't even started. Is that too much flesh tone?
That might get the wrong audience, though.
Any audience outside of our normal niche is not a problem. No, that's all right. Okay, right. So
cool.
Matthew is not hearing us, so he's probably restarting his browser or restarting something.
My level, how is that vocal level?
That's good for me. Feels good.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Again, using the Neve transformer. I had the Steinberg.
The URRT. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I've got a bit of a problem. I spilt a fizzy drink on my MIDI controller, so I've had to remap half my faders because some of them don't work, or they just cause it to jump. So I'm a little bit.
Oh gosh!
Because I didn't want to have to I've got a spare of this, but I didn't want to have to relabel absolutely everything because that would just.
Oh yeah.
You know, not at 20 to 4 anyway.
Oh, you just spilt it then, just now?
No, I didn't, but I tested it earlier, and I was like, and it worked earlier, but obviously it's an intermittent fault. So what's happening is when I'm fading down, I use one fader to control all of the video playbacks of anything. So so it just pulls down everything, whereas each of the guests has its own fader. But it was just sort of going. So, that's not really viable, is it?
No,
not viable.
I like auto trem.
Auto trem, right? Okay, I'm just trying to get myself. How's my level now? Is that a bit better, everybody?
I've got you now,
2.
Nick.
You got me now.
Yes.
Excellent.
Hey. Hi, Matt.
You got me. All good.
Yeah, I've got you too. So audio is a bit hot from Gaz, so I could just pull you down on the fader. Okay. And how are you, Matt? If you just give us.
Hello. Good afternoon. How are you? Am I a bit hot or a bit cold?
Okay, no, that feels good. And Gaz? Speak, Gaz?
Yep, okay, hello.
Yes. How's that? I might just drop it up a little bit. Okay, I think we're ready to go.
Amazing.
Standing by, everybody. Whew, gosh, it's getting ever so hot in here again. Right, okay, let me just get everything lined up because this is a little bit finicky because I've got to try and I'm trying to bring the Facebook chat in, but I can't get the Facebook chat in until I've started the live stream. It's just a bit of a mess, really. So here, let's see what we can do. Right, let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 541, recording today, Wednesday, the 18th of July. You might feel that if you're in the UK, summer just ended because it's now overcast. It's still very, very hot. I don't know, this building just seems to retain heat, even though it's quite chilly outside by comparison. It's boiling in here. Anyway, that's I digress. As usual, as an intro, I want to say hello and welcome to the Sonic Talk podcast. This is to do with music technology, computers, software, live production, synthesizers, drum machines, anything you like to that surrounds the ecosystem of making and producing live music or electronic music or recorded music, any of those things. So I want to welcome you. I also want to say hello to our sponsors, Isotope. We have in fact got a competition for you this week. I'm going to run it now because you can win a copy of their Isotope vocal synth. We're looking for the hashtag 5vocaltools. That's the number 5 and vocal tools, and the hashtag vocalsynth2 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. And you can win a copy copy of their vocal synth processor, which has some fantastic stuff. We'll play a little promo for that later on. If you want to enter the competition, though, we're looking for the hashtag 5VocalTools and the hashtag VocalSynth2 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope. Anyway, got that stuff out of the way. That's good. I'll see if I remember to play the video later as well. So we'll join our guests. Let's see who we've got first. I'll start over here. We have Mr. Matthew Hodson, Matt Hodson
Hello.
Music, or Matthew Hodson Music, who's there. I'm guessing you're at BIM, which is your where you teach electronic music type stuff, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm here at the college at BIM Brighton. Yeah, I'm the course leader for the BA Honours in Music Production in most of my duties these days, as well also trying to fit all the other things around it. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me again.
You're very welcome. Also want to say, I think we have Mr. Mylar Melody somewhere in the chat room there. I think I saw him there somewhere.
Sorry. Yeah.
So hello to Mylar. I was playing a little bit of a preview because I've just reviewed the Moog Grandmother. I noticed my pronunciation of Moog. I was generally on point, but I did say Moog a few times, so I do apologise in the Anyway, that'll be coming out in a few days. Just give you a little preview there. Of course, if you subscribe to Sonicstate, when we stream live at 4 p.m. every Wednesday, you can not only can you join the YouTube chat room or IRC, but you quite often get a little preview of stuff to come and some preamble, if that's the sort of thing that you get, and that's only exclusive to the kind of non-edited version. Anyway, I also want to say hello to Mr. Gaz Williams, gazwilliams.me, bass player, producer, music technologist, and inhabitor of upper regions of studios in houses. Well, terrible. How are you, Gaz?
I'm chuffed. I am, because well, I'm assuming it was Eric who tweeted that the Sledge profile for Omnisphere 2.5 is they've just done it, and they did it for me. I'm so pleased. So
oh wow,
because I reckon a Sledge is going to be, you know, when you apply that Omnisphere 2.5, the hardware integration, the way that works. I mean, if you're not sure what that is, check it out, because it's absolutely stunning. But imagine that with the Sledge. The Sledge has got the most absolutely brilliant logical layout. Yeah. So to have the Sledge as just a giant Omnisphere controller is a bit cool. So quite excited about that. Yeah, so excited. I actually had a dream about me playing it, so it was
wow.
Yeah.
So well, that's good. And for those of perhaps you're wondering what's going on, the Omnisphere 2.5 update created kind of hardware templates for the similar kind of structure of the hardware synthesizer inside Omnisphere, and then that means you can use the controls of your hardware synth to control the software version. And in many cases, what it did is it got around certain limitations of the hardware synth, but using the hardware synth control. You're right, the Sledge is a really good example, because there's so much space around all the controls, isn't there?
Definitely. I mean, it has possibly, I think, the nicest layout, irrespective of the sound engine, which I really enjoy. The layout is just terrific. It's roughly based on a Minimoog. But one of the great things with the Omnisphere integration is the fact that just from an initialized patch, if I was, for instance, to turn the reverb control up on the Sledge, it would instantiate automatically a reverb in the Omnisphere rack without you having to do that. Similarly, if I set up using the Sledge's own modulation, it will set that up in the modulation matrix within Omnisphere without you having to do anything like that. So I think it's such a clever idea, and according to Eric, they're going to try and support as many synths. Yeah, great. Well, I mean, depending on how long it takes, but yeah. Well, yeah, and also the criteria being they really need them to be USB devices as well, I think, don't they? I think it's probably maybe the requirement. The requirement, I think. I'm not sure about that, but yeah. I just want to put this out there, because a couple of people in the chat room goes, "What is this thing you call a Sledge?" And this is the Sledge. It's the virtual analog from Studio Logic that's very custard yellow, and I reviewed it. It's quite old now, but it's had a few firmware updates that really improve its capabilities. There is the Sledge, the black Sledge as well, isn't there? Which is the sort of very nice, different looking thing. Yeah, it looks dead cool. The black Sledge, and with the black and grey keyboard. I've never seen that really. Or it's nice. It's nice. Super cool, yeah. I would, if I had room or a need, I would, because it's almost worth setting it up as a generic MIDI controller, because you've effectively on most, you've got
parameters controls for what you'll find in most subtractive synthesizers. I mean, obviously, if you're getting some stronger stuff, it's going to be a bit,
That's the thing, though, about the Omnisphere thing is that you don't have to map anything. You know, you don't have to.
Well, but you can only use Omnisphere to do that. So,
fair play. No, fair play. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, right. Well, let's get on. I mean, this is inevitable that we're going to get to this, isn't it? I mean, there's items coming up. This is CDM Link, Peter Kern's place, Peter Kern's excellent site. New Apple MacBook Pro revision, boost CPU display. Should you buy? I've obviously got the MacBook Pro here. I've been customizing one, and I managed to get it up to just £3,689, and that was without me going. Let's add I've got 32 gigs. Let's add maybe 4 terabytes of storage. There we go, £6,000. I mean. And you know, you could immediately say, oh, SSD is much cheaper than that, but it's not. It's that Nantec stuff, or whatever it's called, which I've got in this MacBook Pro, and it is blindingly fast. So essentially, Apple have updated their MacBook Pro range, and it's, you know, it's a premium product. But I have to say, I mean, I bought one last year. Was it the year before? January last year. Because a friend of mine just sort of got in touch and said, hey, I've got a mate in the Apple store, I can get you a discount. So I wasn't even planning on buying it, but I've been very happy with it so far, apart from obviously the bag of clag nuts I have to carry around with it. But this is, I mean, this is the big, you know, it's a big thing, isn't it? I mean, we know that the Apple desktops have not really had any love, and the laptops are really starting to get powerful, but you are paying a massive premium for this, and I know a lot of people run Macintoshes.
I tell you what, though, why do they have to be so stinking antagonistic? You know, where is the escape key? You know, I don't think you've got an escape key on yours either. But how dare they do such a you know, like escape key?
It's on the touch bar. It's on the touch bar.
Oh, but is that like kind of? But escape is like a really crucial button in it to be hardware. You know. Escape. It's the escape pod. It's the way out. It's help. You know, it's. You know,
I don't think it's not a deal breaker.
You don't reckon?
Anyway. Not for me, no.
Oh, do you think I'm?
Well, there is an escape key. You know, it's on the touch bar. I mean, I must admit the touch bar isn't something I've used a lot of.
Is that dependent on what the touch bar's doing though?
No,
it's always there.
I think so, but I wouldn't testify in court.
I think there's an option. You can either have the touch bar update depending on what app you're on and what functionality you're doing, which causes some users a bit of a headache because it's constantly flashing and changing depending on what app you're on. Or you can go into the preferences and just say leave it as the default, so you've always got escape and brightness and the traditional F functions, I think. So I can understand that. But I don't know if did you guys see the video that was posted earlier this morning where this YouTuber, he's got about 1.4 million subscribers, and he's done a test and he was rendering out some Final Cut Pro stuff. And he found that the processor gets throttled because the machine overheats so much that it actually starts throttling the power that it's able to process stuff. Oops. And it actually performed worse than the previous processor.
What?
And this guy this guy's brilliant. He put the laptop then in a freezer with the door open to cool it down, ran the same tests again, and it was blindingly fast. So it just proved that it can't actually cool itself. It's too powerful for itself, for the chassis that it's in, to actually do what it's meant to do. You should watch it.
That is curious. I mean, there are other options. I mean, you know, we had a chap here just the other day, a guy called Simon Stokes, who was filming some stuff on Ableton for us. That's going to be coming up quite soon. And he was using a Dell XPS 15, which was really nice, very similar. And he was just running Ableton Live on it. But one of the reasons he did that, and this is just a general aside, is there's something in that there's a hardware dithering that changes the pixel depth on the Mac laptops from 6 bits to 8 bits to get that true color. But it has a certain frequency that some people are really sensitive to. He happens to be one of them. And he can't use a Mac because it gives him the worst migraines. You know, they're sort of like got to go to bed for a couple of days migraines. And this is an issue, you know, on PCs that there are ways to address that at kernel level. You can get little utilities that will disable that bit dithering. Whereas on a Mac, it's not possible. And, you know, when we were here, we were filming him, and we ended up turning our LEDs off, and we put some tungsten up because he's so sensitive to that. It's actually pulse width modulation in a lot of cases. You get this very fast flickering. I mean, I can't detect it, but he and many other people, what's it called? It's called FRC, says Wagyu in the chat room. I shall just see if I can throw that one up. The bit depth interpolation stuff. Let's see if I can send that. I can get, yeah, it's called FRC, and it's definitely something that you need to watch out for. But I mean, that's an aside. It may be something that they can fix. I mean, I know that the people at Apple are probably able to do it, but it happens apparently post graphics card. It's in some sort of hardware chip. But obviously there are other options. I mean, this is the thing. And this is the other thing. You know, once you get to like the mid-range laptop, Apple MacBook is still about $2,500. You know, that's a lot of money, and you can get, you know, there are now a lot of other options, and I think Apple are in danger of losing their kind of core market because, you know, previously they've been the most powerful, and they're not so much anymore. So it's actually going to be certainly price for buck, and that disparity seems to have got wider. Even though my laptop, I'm really pleased with it. For when we use it, I mean, specifically for rendering video, I mean, it's not so much a problem, but bottlenecks in audio. But, you know, it flies through video so fast. I mean, it's very impressive. Sorry, go guys.
I was just saying, I mean, it seems like a fairly limited range, though, as well, isn't it? You know, the 13-inch and the 15-inch, you don't get any bigger screens. I mean, I had the last generation of the 17-inch, and I know a lot of professionals kind of were sad to see the 17-inch go. And it seems like just to go to the 15-inch is quite a premium, isn't it, from the 13-inch? You know, and like, God, it feels really weird that these small screens is all we've got. You know, that they don't cater for anything larger. I mean, is that on the assumption that people
13-inch starts at $1,249, goes up to $1,749 with touch bar, and the 15-inch starts at $2,349, goes to $2,699. That's without upgrading the processor or any of that stuff.
Yeah, so it's like a, you know, just to get a 15-inch is like the big premium. You just sort of find that a bit odd. I would still prefer like a larger screen, like a 17-inch screen, if I was looking for a laptop personally. I just find that a bit peculiar that they've absolutely abandoned that. I mean, I guess it's to do with the industrial design. It must be so expensive.
Well, yeah, but I mean, to be fair, there aren't that many laptops. There aren't that many laptops that go to 17. There used to be a range. You know, you would be able to get other 17-inch laptops. I mean, I'm sure you can still get them, but that's dropped down. I wonder if it's just the panels have become less, you know, available. I know. Matthew, do you use laptops live? I mean, what's your kind of?
I mean, this what I'm coming to you live today is a 2013 MacBook Pro, 16 gig of RAM, 512 SSD, and this has been my studio. This has been everything since 2013, and it's great. And it, you know, music rendering, it's absolutely fabulous. Yesterday, it actually took a nosedive, and I've got a big crack across the screen now, and it's flickering. So I've got to now decide. You know, it's 2013 machine. Do I actually make this upgrade now, bite the bullet, and go for the new laptop, or get the screen fixed? The thing about this one as well, because it's a unibody, that the actual rubber feet came off it. Would you believe? And you can't fix them unless you take it apart and put these rubber feet internally in and make them pop out. So in terms of heat as well, it's never raised up off the ground properly. So it also gets very hot. But yeah, I've been using this 2013. I use this live. I use it for work. I use it in the studio. It goes pretty much everywhere with me. And it has been a power horse. I mean, I mean, this thing about, you know, the throttling of speeds and stuff, these are still powerful machines. Let's give them that. But these are aimed at pros. This is a MacBook Pro after all. And they're aimed at us who are doing this kind of work. We're not just sat here using Word and flicking through the internet. We're doing some quite chunky work on it a lot of the time, aren't we? So you really expect them to stand up and, you know, do what they're meant to be doing and not let you down. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, though. I mean, because many of the software products that much of us use, certainly in audio, a lot of them are cross-platform now. I mean, not all of them. I wonder if that distinction is kind of largely irrelevant now. It's just kind of whatever suits your budget, really. And maybe, you know, if you like the Windows system or whatever. But I mean, a lot of what we do takes place in the browser, or you know, the internet browser, or in an application like Ableton Live. You know, when Simon was using Ableton Live on his Dell, it was, you know, there was no discernible difference whatsoever. So maybe it's largely irrelevant now.
But yeah, most of the things have gone across anyway, haven't they? I mean, Fruity Loops is on the Mac now, and
It's
Digital
just Logic.
Performer's on the PC. Just Logic, more or less, isn't it?
Just Logic in it, yeah. That's the only one. It would seem.
What I'm
holding us
interested
back.
in, this is a second generation now of the MacBook since they've all of the ports other than these kind of USB-C ports. Is that right?
I think so.
Now, are manufacturers now always including a USB-C cable in their packaging? I mean, I hardly see them in anything I've opened
we did
recently.
a piece on the Audient ID44, and that comes with a USB-C to USB connection and adapters as well. I mean, the other thing that's
good.
you know,
Good
the other
to see.
thing that is worth mentioning about this new generation of Apples, I mean, they've been around for a while, is we've got USB-C's Thunderbolt, and that's still, we bought the PC that this production is running on is a desktop, you know, is a very modern motherboard that hasn't got USB-C as standard. It hasn't got Thunderbolt as standard. It came with a little card that would go to USB. So that fast bus is actually, you know, even though we've got all the dongle issues and what have you, it's still a very it's a very powerful feature that's sometimes overlooked. I think the fact that you can bus out so quickly, even though you do need adapters for everything. I mean, you know, the other day I was trying to do a return feed to somebody on an old laptop which just got FireWire, and it's like, how am I going to do this? And I found a couple of cables and an old one of the very first cameras that we use, which is the Sony PC 110, I think it was. And I was like, I wonder if I can do that. And so I send a feed out from this system on what was it? It was S video into the camera in record mode, then from the camera FireWire into that, and that turned up as a Skype video input. It's like, I mean, to do that on a modern machine, you just be like, no, you spend about 400 quid on adapters just to have that happen. So
that's it. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I'm not only am I considering now upgrading to the new line of MacBooks, but I'm sat here and I'm looking at my sound cards connected via USB. I've got a Thunderbolt adapter for Ethernet, and I've got the amazing the battery magnetic connection, which is gone from the new ones as well. I don't know how many times that saved my life when I've got up, kicked my power cable, it's just popped out, and my machine stayed where it was without tumbling to the floor. But yeah, that's gone, isn't it? I think in the new range, because it's replaced by the USB-C.
Don't like that. I think
no, I don't.
That's input, but mind you, you said you dropped your laptop, so it didn't do you much good in the end. Anyway, I didn't want to turn this into too much of a Mac or PC thing, but I think the interesting thing is that, you know, much of the software that you can get, you know, certainly across many of the things that we use are available in both formats. So it's kind of, you know, that's a moot point so much now. Okay, right. Well, here's something else. How about this? This is the...
Hello there and welcome to Bo
This is
Beats.
Bo Beats.
Today we're checking out the updated mixer from Roland, the Go Mixer Pro.
So this is the update to the Go Mixer, which was really useful for... I know that Jim Hayward, who was reporting from NAMM for us, was using it to get kind of demos in on his iPhone, and just so he got a line
similarities with the original Go Mixer. The main difference being that they've added a phantom-powered mic input. Now, if you're not familiar with the Go Mixer series, it's sort of a mix between an audio interface and a mixer. So you have multiple inputs and you have dedicated controls for them, setting the levels. But you can only record to a stereo or mono track, so you can't do multi-tracking. The original Go Mixer didn't have phantom power, so
Okay, well, I mean, the full review is available on Bo Beats' channel. In fact, Bo Beats, I did an interview with Bo Beats a couple of weeks ago, which I think is online there. It was really good fun, so I just wanted to plug that. So do check out his stuff. These little portable mixers are really handy, particularly now with the phone cameras being so good. I mean, you can get like a multi-channel mix into your phone and you're off.
Yeah.
You know? Makes me feel carrying all that stuff around that I do. I just sort of thinking,
I mean, this does look cool. I thought the original Go Mix looked great, other than that thing about now it's got that little switch on that sort of toggles the loop back function, which on the original Go Mix it didn't have that, and that was the absolute deal breaker. It meant you could use it for streaming or for live, but to overdub over anything you just couldn't, because it would record the output of the phone at the same time, so it just wouldn't allow for sort of you know, do you remember those days in the 90s when you'd buy a sound card and, you know, half duplex, full duplex? It's a bit like that. But the new one, though, thankfully has a little switch on there, so it means you can actually use it as a functional audio interface, albeit just 2 in, 2 out. Even though it's got all those different inputs, it just sort of creates like a stereo in, stereo out affair. However, I mean, they are really good sounding. I mean, this new one, it's got a hell of a funny look about it. That kind of battery pack for the Phantom Power, it just looks like such a strange addition. What I would like to see is an update for the original Go Mix. I think that actually that makes more sense personally, for the just like really small in the pocket, doesn't need any batteries, but it just needs that one switch, that loop back switch. So that's what I would like to see. But saying that, I do think this does look really good though. You know, makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
I like seeing those, you know, a pair of mini jack stereo inputs there, as well as the 2 big jack inputs, and it's got like another mic input on like a plug-in power, like a lavalier type input as well. So it's an absolute plethora of inputs. But there's no software for this. There's no mixer for it. You know, it's all just what you see is what it is. Essentially, it's a very, very simple device. But I mean, you know, for streamers and that sort of thing, I think it's super.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of thing. Yeah, exactly, Matt. I mean, you know, even just for this sort of situation, you could be doing this on your iPad or on your phone. You don't need the full kind of desktop experience to do this. I mean, it's browser based, and as long as you can use this, and mixing multiple channels in is very handy.
Absolutely, streaming's not going anywhere, and you can make something as convenient, as lightweight, as portable as this. That sounds pretty good. It's a winner, really. I was really taken as well, and I've just been looking a little bit at the software that you can use on your phone. Have you looked at this, the 4X camera app that Roland do? It goes hand in hand with this, and it allows you to have 4 different iOS devices stream to one main device.
Whoa!
So yeah, you've suddenly got 4 musicians who are all plugged into the Go Mix, split on the screen like we are, and then being streamed at the same time. Happy days.
Well, there is. I mean, we use. I can't remember what it's called now. Switcher Studio, which is the same thing. You have remote cameras and bring them in. I suppose you could do the same thing, but that's neat, definitely.
But I think the camera app is free, and then there's another one where they can do it. There's one called Virtual Stage Camera where they can replace the background and make it look like you're in the O2 or something like that.
Yeah, all of that stuff.
On that app, can I just ask? That app, can you go full screen on any of the can you toggle full screen, or is it just fixed?
I'm just trying to load the
whatever
picture.
The camera's
load the here we go. Easy way to create split screen.
It's a free download.
Easy way to create split screen. 4 cameras, so you have it's a split screen thing. Export your video, share your performance. Blah 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 blah. Adjust the volume.
There's 10 different split screen patterns, Gaz. So one of those patterns might be a 4, and then you might have a 2, and you might just have a 1 even.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look at that. That's kind of a neat idea and quite close. I don't know if it streams. Look, you can reframe it by the looks of things. You can do that.
You can move it within the squares
and then trim the clips. That's a neat idea.
That is cool.
And adjust the volumes. I guess.
I mean, I do live streaming. My current live streaming setup is 4 GoPros. They go into a Roland V mix, and then that goes into my game capture card and that kind of thing. So when I'm streaming from the studio, when I'm doing my modular jams, that's how I'm doing it. I used to use one of these Mevo cameras. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah, they're Facebook ones.
Yeah. Used one of those, but I had issues with connectivity because it was over wireless all the time and it would drop and things like that. This looks actually really cool. I'd stick this on the output of my main mix, stereo in from my main mixer, run everything into it. I could have 2 iPhones and an iPad connected into this app, and I don't know if it does switch. It'd be really cool if it did automatic switching.
That would be good. So you've got a Roland V-Mix.
I've got one of the Roland, I think that's what they're called, isn't it? The V-Mix, and it takes HDMI inputs.
Wow. Just for you, because they're not cheap, are they? They're really, because we've looked at that. They've got great colours.
Yeah.
This is not a program about video, I suppose. So perhaps we should have that conversation.
Yeah,
before.
okay.
But yeah, the Go Mix, I think it's going to be around $169, from what I can tell.
I think it's really interesting, and
that's quite chunky.
A little bit expensive.
Yeah.
Little bit expensive.
I'm thinking also for my students here as well. We do multimedia based stuff all the time as well. So for them to just be able to go down to Brighton Beach, plug this in, do some jamming, and just come back then and re-edit footage and audio, I think that could be that can open up some cool stuff for them to do.
That's quite a premium over the original Go Mix, then, isn't it? Then
I think that was $99, wasn't it? The original.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Again, if that original Go Mix had that switch. No, 74 quid the Go Mix.
74, yeah.
And then 149 quid, yeah, for the new
Double
one.
the price.
So that's a lot for just the Phantom Power. But that switch is everything, though, isn't it? It makes it a fully usable audio interface, which it's not in the original Go Mix. But
I guess so. Well, I think, Mary, what I'll do is I'll play the little we'll do the competition. If you've been waiting to see whether you won the competition, we can wait no longer. First, a little word from our friends at Isotope. This is obviously Vocal Synth 2, which has just come out. Comes with 5 really unique and powerful modules, including new Biovox, vocoder, more bands, improved, more CompuVox, loads more presets, loads more effects, new GUI, TalkBox, some really interesting stuff you can do with vocal track shaping and with vowel control. Just really powerful. Vocals Evolved. If you check it out at isotope.com/vocal synth, I'm imagining. And we have a winner from last week. And the winner from last week is somebody called, what they call Bondi, whose Twitter handle is @PorthosMusic. And they said, I need Vocal Synth to help me get over the excitement of the World Cup. Keep up the good work, ladies and gents. Making great products on the SS podcast isn't bad either. I'm assuming Sonicstate rather than anything else. But thank you very much. So @PorthosMusic, if you get in touch, we will pass your details on to the folks at Isotope, and they will be able to bestow Vocal Synth 2 on you, which I think you'll probably have a lot of fun with. Definitely. Well, not probably. I think you definitely will have a lot of fun. I think you definitely. That's a bit of a non-definite statement. Right. Let's see, what else have we got? Ah, yes, let's have a look at this. This is the new Seek 12 or SEQ12 for Mode Machines, a big old hardware sequencer with 12 tracks and 16 rows. Uses those really neat, nifty little kind of low-profile LED backed buttons for controlling and recording MIDI and CV. It looks like a very powerful thing. It seems to be a kind of growing market, this sort of large format hardware sequencer. This is the teaser video. The only other video they had was just really appalling musical examples, and I didn't really want to do them any disfavours. So there's a whole, but it's like a sort of Tenorion vibe, 12-track matrix sequencer. I think I've got a picture of the actual thing here, which I should probably just bring up. That's what it looks like. Let's see if we can make that bigger. Does that get bigger? Yeah, probably. Hello. There it is. Gets bigger and bigger. Oh, this is running very slowly. Oof. Oof. But yeah, that's what it does. And now I'm going to come to you, Matt, first, because I know you're big into the modular side of things, and I just wondered, you know, because I don't really get on with step sequences. I always find that I start something and I think, what I really want is a little kind of nudge note in there that is something that's outside of the resolution of the steps I've decided to program in the first place. So I always end up getting a bit frustrated. I mean, there must be a way to utilize them better than I can, right?
Well, they're a different way of working, a different mindset. And I explain this to my students quite a bit, is as opposed to step sequence in Logic or Ableton or something like that, when you're face to face with the hardware step sequencer, you do approach it in a different mindset, and you're going to have different outcomes based upon that and the functionality of it. So it has its pros and cons. I've used quite a few step sequencers, particularly in the modular world. I've got the Eloquencer by Winter Modular and the Squarp by Hermod. No, sorry, Hermod by Squarp Instruments. I've got the ER101. They've all got different ways of working and what have you. I don't mind working with them. I like the way that it forces me into a different way of thinking and approach to composition, and yeah, I tend to get all sorts of different ideas out of them. But just looking at the manual on this one, it doesn't seem to me this isn't CV ready, is it? This is just MIDI out, I think, by the looks of it. It's just got 3 MIDI outputs, so we'd have to do some MIDI to CV conversion there. But then I think you're going to lose what's really cool about this is its ability to do chord sequencing. So I guess you would lose that in the MIDI to CV conversion somehow, because obviously it's gonna change that chord into a monophonic signal, if you like.
So I mean, if you're working with a step sequencer, what's the first one you would generally reach for then? I mean, what's the one that you just kind of go, right, I need to get something down?
Get something down. I would probably either go for the Winter Modular Eloquencer. Just it's so fun to use, so immediate. Or the if you want to get out of that world even more, you'd go for something like I've got the Renee by Make Noise, which itself it's a different approach to step sequencing.
That's the Eloquencer right there.
That's it there. Yeah, it's really cool. 8 tracks CV and gate. You've got probability, you've got ratcheting going on. It's very easy to daisy chain things together. You can have all tracks running at different lengths as well, which I love to do. I like to take 3 tracks, for example, generate a chord across those 3 tracks. So you've got the root, the 3rd and the 5th, but have each track running at different lengths with that note of the chord at different times.
Yeah, you get some lovely counterpoint there that you weren't expecting, wouldn't you?
Yeah, big on that.
This was also mentioned by let's see, where is it? Oh, I'm trying to find it. It doesn't seem to be there. The 512 from Numerology, which was in hardware. I think we did something on it at Super Booth, and that looked really good because it's a transversion, a kind of transposition from software to hardware of the sequencer. But yeah, I still can't find anything that I kind of really dig. I mean, I come back to the Deluge again because that looks kind of good. Or obviously the Polyend, because it's just got such a lot of buttons on it, so that might work. I guess what's hardware sequencer do you tend to reach for? You got the Beat Step.
Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 or 7 of them behind me at the moment. So yeah, and what I really like about them is the differences between all of them in terms of and like what Matt's saying, it's different mindset, but different mindset between each device. And I mean, this one, I was salivated over this one. I thought it looked really good. But similarly, the Polyend Seek as well, really fancy one of them. But I mean, like, take that for instance, the Korg SQ1, and it's such a cool little box, especially when you start using it in ways maybe that you wouldn't expect with a step sequencer. And it's like the other day, for instance, in the step jump mode, I realized that I could actually pitch. I made a keyboard. I just set it to be like a, if you imagine there's all the white notes here and then the black notes, the 2 and then the 3 there, just set them. And then in step mode, have all of them turned off, just play it like a really rubbish MIDI keyboard. but I was using that as an example, just that you can do all sorts of kind of interesting stuff with just one of these. And I think that's the thing. It's your hands are all over it when you're performing with it, and it's just simply impossible to do with a computer. Like with this one, for instance, you can just set it just to go back and forward between however many steps, and running forward and back. And I love doing that, just having it running between just 2 steps. And I've got 2 fingers on both controls, having it locked into a particular scale, and then just manipulating the 2 controls as it goes back and forward, kind of crazy soloing. Total crazy soloing by just operating the 2 as it goes back and forward, and it's locked in a scale, and and things like that. That's only really possible. And of course, the other thing, which I think is a very overlooked thing, you can do it with the Beat Step, which is that thing about let the sequence go a couple of times, then just put something else in, and it instantly replaces what's there. Oh, the key step as well is really fun with that.
Yeah, I find, but that's the thing I end up in, because I'm starting something and I go, oh yeah, I'm feeling a little bit of something, and what I want is a little kind of blip, you know,
Right.
something that falls between the 8-note
Well,
or
you can
because the problem
shift
is
on
when you but when you're doing step sequencing, say you want to kind of go da 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 da, that means all of the steps have to be that fast. So then trying to figure out how many rests you need between this note and that, it just doesn't suit my musical brain at all, and I can't figure that out. So I prefer a real-time sequencer to get the initial feel, and if then it could figure out, okay, so the division needs to be that if you're playing this, so yeah, fill your boots.
The way that Electron deals with it's quite cool, isn't it? That it kind of gives you, I can't remember how many points of resolution between the steps, but if you record it with quantize off, it'll only record, I mean, essentially if it's 16 notes, but those notes can be quite off from the grid. And then you can touch on any step and then move it forward and backwards and slide it. And it's a little, the screen changes to a little grid.
So what was that again? What sequence is that?
That's on all the Electron sequences work like that. You know, so long as you've got quantize turned off, but even with quantize turned on, you know, you can hold a step and then the left and right buttons will slide it around, and it'll slide it around locked to musical steps, but really, really super small. I think I can't remember. Is it 128 steps? Or, I'm not sure, but you know,
I suppose
it's a good way around.
Yeah, the big thing, Matt, is probably the biggest change in sequences was kind of Electron's thing, which is the parameter locking, recording parameter changes across steps. I mean, that just completely changes everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, when you've got changes per step, and being able to inject either controlled random or controlled modulation per step, that's when it gets fun. Now, I was fortunate to spend some time with James Holden earlier this year, and he took us through his live set and how his modular synth works, and all of his sequencing still comes from Max MSP. And he took us through the sequences that he'd built, and how I described earlier, where he might have a very simple 4-note melody playing, each note being on its own track, and after a while, each track would have would throw something random in there, like a P-lock or modulation, and it would go, okay, now I'm going to add a trill onto there, or I'm going to move you forwards or backwards by 1 beat, or I'm going to add an octave up on this particular part, and he would just inject this kind of randomness, this controlled randomness, or this controlled modulation per step in a musical way. And the computer would kind of just get on with it. He would set the parameters. So I still feel that software, particularly Max MSP, is still a real leader in terms of putting together something that is so versatile, playable, and performative. And it's in software and
performative.
So
is that a word? It should, if it's not.
Did I just make that up?
I like it. That's another.
I think it's a word.
Performative. Yeah. Right. Let's see. Actually, that reminds me. We didn't Tim Exwell recently just announced this week the Endless. Which is 3 S's on the end, which is, I mean, I've paraphrased in the headline to try and get some clicks, but essentially it's a version of Flow Machine you can buy. And his kind of whole ethos is, I'm sick of having this stuff get in the way. You should just be able to do it. And so I guess it works on the principle of the kind of looper, but which can self-regulate. So, you just go, I'm playing this in, okay, that's what the length of your phrase is, so therefore this is probably 2 or 4 bars or whatever it is. I know you interviewed him, didn't you? You did a thing on the Flow Machine and his other stuff.
And jammed with him.
This could be really, you had a jam.
Make sure you see that, folks, if you haven't seen it, because it's so much fun. And seeing Tim in action is amazing. So, for this to actually be in some way possible for us mere mortals, it's very interesting. But it's going to be interesting, isn't it, how they're going to make the interface to be intuitive and fluid. I have kind of pretty high expectations about this, to be fair.
Well, I think that he's been working on it for a couple of years, hasn't he? So I mean, and still it's not there. They're going to be going into beta test. I think they're going to be releasing later in the year. And I don't know if you could see. I mean, maybe I'll just throw this up quickly because we can see roughly. If I can make that full screen, I can have a quick loop at that.
This is his existing.
That's his existing flow machine, which is obviously monstrously massive and super complicated. So I'm wondering whether it will actually be a reactor-based thing, or whether it's going to be
here. It has been long, hasn't it? It's been a time since I last vlogged here on YouTube. That was about 2 years ago.
Vlog. Who uses vlog anymore?
In that feature that we shot, though, the first one, because we did ones about the different slew and slaw, but the one is about the flow machine, and it goes into quite some detail about what is in the flow machine. So that will probably give you an idea of what Endless is going to,
or at least trying to achieve. So very cool. It's amazing. And of course, regular guest Jamie Liddell. He's actually,
of course,
he lived in the moment of loop and built his own Max MSP loopers and what have you. And then so he's a very he
fantastic
gets that.
at it.
Yeah, really, really good.
I love this idea of this instant composition. Just singing something into the mic, looping bits up, pulling bits from it, stretching it, repeating it, looping it, filtering it, adding effects to it, and just building, but keeping it interesting as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. An interesting time for sequencers. Sorry, Gaz. Yeah,
Tim is a very skilled performer, like as which is clear. But I mean, the reason why I'm saying that though is like, there's a real instrumentalist type virtuoso sort of aspect to Tim. So I'm wondering with Endless. Oh God, yeah, totally, absolutely, yeah.
It just mean loads of people who aren't very good will end up with kind of gigabytes and gigabytes of endless rambling. It's been very easy for them to do, but you still have to make those creative choices, right?
Yeah. So, but what I'm wondering though is just how easy will it be? And because you don't want to sort of sell the idea out from the amount of work and years that Tim's put into developing a lot of his like learning any instrument and becoming a master of an instrument. So it's going to be interesting to see if it'll be kind of super accessible, but also has the depth to go into that. I've got high hopes for it. I think it's going to be brilliant personally. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we've been talking about sequencers, but there's also seems to be a move, a zeitgeist of. I say zeitgeist. Is it really? I don't know. But this is the Roland have just announced no. What is it actually called? I'm just going to close that down. Let's see. It's called the Aerophone Go, which I'm guessing is something to do with the other stuff. The Go Mix Pro. Go Mix Go? No, Go Mix. So this is a new wind instrument that's self-contained, does Bluetooth MIDI, MIDI over wire as well. It's got a built-in sound generator. And the reason this popped up, because there was a couple of videos, there it is, that's what it looks like, a couple of videos on Synthtopia, which I heartily recommend you check out. And these are, that we don't know the pricing yet, but it's interesting, isn't it? These sort of come in and out of fashion, because, I mean, I guess... certainly maybe in America, where lots of people are introduced into marching band stuff, so they already know a certain amount of, there's probably a larger base level of people who can play wind instruments to some degree than perhaps in the US, in the UK. I mean, I am completely generalizing, but it's an interesting idea. I think there were a couple of videos here. Unfortunately, the demos are always really, I mean, this one's not bad, but it's the Aerophone. This is an onboard sound. Sound like a violin. Very Hans Zimmer-esque kind of soundtrack work. And there's another one here, which is the square lead, which again is just, I mean, lovely playing, all that. It's just a bit on the cheesy side.
Oh, hello.
Oh yeah. But I mean, as we know, I mean, they're really, really,
Yeah.
really good for controlling analog synthesizers, because that breath expression is something that's so maybe this will kind of generate a new thing. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, have you ever seen people playing analog synths with wind controllers? It is bonkers. I mean, Will Gregory does the Moog, the Moog Orchestra or Moog Ensemble, and several of them are playing. Yeah, it's just astonishing.
Yeah, but they've got also, you know, they've got velocity going on there, and it's very nuanced, and they're great players as well. What I'm excited about this is not that video we just saw there where he's like did, although that is very exciting. I'm excited about this because I think I mentioned this a couple of podcasts back, in that, you know, the keyboard is still for some a barrier, in that people will sit at it and don't really understand musically how it's determined and how it functions. So to pick up a wind instrument like this, which is kind of alien in itself, it's almost
there is an element of the Star
point.
Wars band about it, isn't there? Yeah.
Well, it's almost the same starting point as this barrier here. You know, you might as well go and pick up one of these things, and you might gel with it more than you're going to gel with the traditional keyboard. Plus, I'm really excited about this because I do a bit of library music as well. I do things for TV and adverts and what have you, and working with strings and all that, you know, virtual instrument strings. I can see this being really useful in order to get some of that extra expression in there as well, which I tend to struggle sometimes with, where getting that super nuance in. I have to go and enjoy it with automation.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I'm guessing this is probably about the time you're going to mention the expressive E for expression. But wind controllers, touche, yeah. But wind controllers definitely have a certain something. I mean, you can get, you know, it didn't really work. I think there's something about the kind of fact that you've got sort of dribble and spit involved that sort of makes it somehow less savoury, you know.
Yeah, that is true. You do have to factor that in, because I had the Casio DH100. Do you remember that thing? And so I
I've got to find a picture of that
silver saxophone. I was so excited to have this. I had it years ago, like end of the 80s, I think, or early 90s. This weirdy Casio silver saxophone thing. I came very close to buying a Akai Iwi Iwi 4000, is it? I can't remember which one. A few years ago, but in the end, I didn't.
There it is.
For whatever. Oh yeah, you found it.
Wow.
Yeah, there it is.
Sales
Look
and
at
repairs. I imagine cleaning. Can you clean it being high on the list of requests for something like that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, the keys were ever so sticky on it. They would stick down so easily. It was really kind of it was pretty rubbish, but it was fun. But I have got my eye on this, I have to say. For playing analog synths with, though, that's for that reason, absolutely for that reason. I mean, I play MIDI bass and I do different, you know, I think, you know, why should keyboardists have all the fun? I mean, I've got loads of keyboards in here, but I'm absolutely dreadful pianist. I truly am, embarrassingly bad, but you know, I just love the sound. So any way to get those sounds other than using
well, I mean, when you map breath control to filter and brightness, I mean, it really does come to life.
But
Dribble and Spit is currently the favourite show title, definitely.
But it shouldn't be forgot, because you can do this. Sorry. I was going to say, it shouldn't be forgotten, though, how good a controller Thumb Jam is on the iPhone, and you can set it. Do you remember we were doing that? And it was super sensitive. You kind of sing into it, and then it turns your voice into kind of like MIDI trumpets, but you can have it lock into keys and stuff as well. So you don't really need to sing in tune. You just need to sort of express yourself. I mean, the thing is, you do make some quite horrible noises out your own mouth, but it was surprising how well that would actually translate to just as a means to get, you know, because you go ba 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 ba, whatever, and ba 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 ba.
The phrasing,
that kind
of
of thing.
The phrasing,
the phrasing. So I mean, Thumb Jam is a classic. It's one of the greatest iOS apps of all time, and that's something that people often forget about.
Go, Matt.
I actually haven't checked out Thumb Jam. I will do, but something just came to mind. Who else uses is I was quite fortunate to work with the Radiophonic Workshop a couple of years ago, and for part of their live stuff, they would use, a couple of them would use these triggering vintage analog synths to play live. And I think again, it's to do with the nuance and velocity and opening and closing filters and what have you. I can't remember the exact one that they used. I think it was an earlier version of this, an earlier Roland one or a Korg one or something like that. Can't quite remember.
Sorry, best gag so far is Heathcliff are the YouTube track. I need a Bad Beth controller for when I eat hummus. There we go. Very good. Lovely spot. Yeah, I think, and I think when you hear that, I mean, we did a piece on the Moog Ensemble. It's on our YouTube channel somewhere, and they had 3 or 4 people playing EWIs, and they were going into, I think they were using Mini Brutes. And I can't remember what else. There was another instrument as well. I think maybe there was a Moog involved somewhere. And because they were playing Bach pieces, and they just sounded so much like horns. I mean, it was kind of like, wow, that sounds so, because of the expression they were using to open the filter and change the timbre. I mean, you know, in the hands of a skilled player, I mean, it's really powerful, that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, most of us are not skilled players when it comes to wind instruments, but you can, like you say, Gaz, you can still express yourself. That's the idea, isn't it? That's the main thing.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I think what will be good with this, being as it's a Roland product as well, is that, you know, Roland quite often have educational sort of tilted equipment. So I'd assume that this is going to be actually, I think the learning curve for this will probably be very good. And I think... and I think, because I mean, I bought the Eigenhardt Pico again for this.
We've got one of those.
I had a breath controller, and it was just the horridest thing to play. The way the buttons, it was just rubbish. It was
really
they were trying
hard
to use
to play.
Yeah, really hard. It was just, you know, they were trying to use some of that technology in a small, affordable thing, but it was just really not very nice. But when you could get very, very cool. When you got it working, it was very good, but it was just really horrible to play. But yes, so this, I think, I mean, it does look really weird. You know, I don't know how you'd feel on stage playing one.
There we go.
I think you'd have to
like
wear.
This. Do you think these people
you'd have to wear like a space.
Do you think these people look slightly embarrassed, uncomfortable? I don't know. Maybe.
I think you're going to have to get the cape out.
The cape.
Yeah.
Cape out,
What was that band in the 70s, Space? You know, that band, the French band Space, looked like that or something. And I think it would look great then. But otherwise,
these are the voices that you get with it, which are a bit general MIDI, alto sax, tenor sax, soprano sax, baritone. Seems a bit of a waste having them all sound like saxophones and wind instruments. You know, they're saw lead, square lead. They are kind of classic 101 GM MIDI patches, aren't they? I bet it's got a GM MIDI pitch, a MIDI chip in there, I reckon.
Probably. For me, whenever I see a new piece of technology like this, I think, how can I misuse this? I often think that's when the most interesting things come out. When you take a product and you use it in the completely wrong way, I think you get some much more interesting things out of it. So, you know, immediately I'm thinking about playing drum machines with this instead, or I don't know, you know, connecting it to, someone mentioned in the forum, I think, in the chat room, about connecting it to something like the Lyra 8.
Oh, yeah. Well, that would be,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be challenging, because that doesn't really respond in any sort of meaningful way whatsoever. Maybe the Pulse, what was it, the Pulsar 32 or 24 or whatever it is, that might be interesting to connect it to, the new drum machine that's working.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, drum machine, and then a beat repeat and things like that on some of the keys and effects. So maybe you can assign some of the keys to turn on and off filters and effects, or stuttering or glitching and that kind of thing. That's when it gets good.
I was using my analog 4 with the Neutron yesterday, using the CV to control it, and set it up initially wrongly, so it took 2 octaves to play 1 octave, and so it was an accident. But I was just playing around with that, with just a little keyboard on the analog 4, which is half an octave, so spreading half an octave over a whole octave. So essentially,
the 6-tone scale
turning it to like a quarter tonally, you know, whatever it was. And I found it really inspiring, the little melodies I was playing on it. So I was kind of thinking, oh, I've not really investigated different kind of tunings and stuff. So that was because I know you can do that on the monologue, can't you? You can do all sorts of weirdy
micro tunings. Yeah, I think you can. I mean, there are theories and ways to do all of that stuff, but I'm sure we've talked about micro tuning.
I discovered it. It was a mistake. It was a mistake, but and it was sort of then playing around with that mistake. I wasn't intending to do it, but I just thought, oh, this is so cool. But the reason I was mentioning that, though, just that's a lot of what makes playing sort of wind instruments really interesting. The fact that you can sort of get those in-betweeny notes, and you can do little slurs and little things that you have to be very good at it with a pitch bend on a regular keyboard to be able to do that. But whereas it's much more natural to do it as a mouth thing. So
sorry, there's a chat. This is a great quote. The only solo worth listening, worth learning is Careless Whisper.
Yeah, I just saw that. I think
Baker
that's
Street,
the first thing you've got to do. I think this thing should ship with a little video to show you how to play Careless Whisper on it. So once you bought it, close that door behind you, dim the lights, and just have a little blast on Careless Whisper.
I think the title is now Dribble and Spit Careless Whisper. Yeah, that could be.
I wonder if you could make a massive papier-mâché sousaphone and then embed the aerophone inside so you'd look really cool on stage then.
Transpose it down a couple of octaves.
Work.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah,
cooler than playing the actual thing, which kind of defeats the point of it. It's a bit like it does. Yeah, there is a side absurdity about the about using those sort of things. But yeah, I guess people will get over it. Times change. There's all that kind of stuff. Well, we seem to have got to 5 o'clock with very few topics, so I'm very pleased about that. So thank you.
Easy.
Thank you very much for guiding us through that hour. That, as we say, sometimes the summer is a little bit quiet, and it certainly is at the moment. But actually, quickly before we go, I want to just remind you of your opportunity to win a copy of Isotope Vocal Synth. We're looking for the hashtag 5 vocal tools. That's the number 5 and vocal tools, and the hashtag vocal synth 2. That's the number 2 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. If you join, if you tweet those out, then you get entered into the competition, and we can pick you from the hashtag search technology that we've developed over many years of running this podcast. But I think that's probably about it for today. Thank you very much. Don't forget, we got the Mo grandmother. What's this? Bebot, or is that Thumb Jam?
What's that? Is that Thumb Jam?
Yeah, I was trying to do it without.
You can't do it without your voice coming through. That's a bit tricky, isn't it?
No, but if you do it with headphones on, it's cool. But yeah.
Got you. Yes, I see. Well, thank you for that little musical interlude. I was going to say, Mo's grandmother review's coming up. Gaz has also reviewed the URT, which we're waiting to hear back from Steinberg. That'll be coming online soon. Loads more content from us. We got a series. We did a great piece on Ableton Live 10's wavetable synthesizer with Simon Stokes. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, what you can get out of that, and he was a really brilliant guide through that. So do stay tuned. More stuff at Sonicstate. Why not subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? So Matt, thank you very much for joining us. I guess your student day. When do you have to get back into student world? I guess you got what, 6 weeks?
Oh, it never ends. No, it's continuous. It never ends. But I've got plenty of stuff going on outside of here. I'm just, I figured I'd do a few videos, more stuff on YouTube. Having just played a few gigs with the module recently, I thought I'd do a kind of tear down discussion on that, about what went well, what didn't go well, get on talking about some of the modules and some of the things that I do in the studio. I've been getting a lot of emails asking about some of my processes. So I think I'm going to start doing a bit more on YouTube, I think, actually.
Well, let us know. We'll be happy to post it, definitely. And of course, you did something on the sculpt. Has that seen the light? Because the modal sculpt launch. Check that out.
Modal sculpt.
Nearly 200% funded.
Yeah, it's great. Wow. They dropped that off at my studio. They ran me through it. I had a prototype which was see-through, so it's quite hard to see the things written on it. So it took a little bit longer. I literally had a couple of days with it. I've still got it, actually. It sounds great, and I did a track for them. You can check it out on there. I think they posted it on the Facebook page. And I put together a track with it, showing off some of the different types of sounds and the way it voices. The delays and that kind of thing. So head over
here
to
we go. Matthew Hodson demo. Here it is.
There we are. That's it.
Yeah, we could play out with
that.
Techno.
All right.
We could play out with that.
Days.
And Gaz, thank
Great.
you very much for joining us as well, as ever. A pleasure to have you.
So, anyone in Bristol Saturday? Rumbelows, my surf band, are headlining the Grain Barge stage at the Harbourside Festival, free. Bristol Saturday, so it's going to be nice. Another thing, though, thanks to Mr. Richard Alpin, he gave me a copy of the Neutron manual.
Nice.
So I've had a Neutron, like a prototype, but I never had a manual with it. And there's just one little thing that I wanted to mention about it I didn't know about. If you press and hold, I can't remember what button it is, I can't remember at the moment, but it makes the LFO knob a tuner, so you can actually tune. It'll show you whether you're sharp or flat for setting the oscillators.
There's loads of little
into
features
tune.
in there. Actually, there's a few of them.
Yeah, super cool.
People
I
have
wish
been
more
talking.
things had that.
Yeah, one quick thing. People have also been saying Drum Brew Impact, which apparently is live tomorrow because it was leaked. And I happen to have one. Yeah.
Nice. Here we go. This is like Tim Exile. A bit of live improvisation here from Nick.
Yeah, I'm not very good on drum machines yet, and I haven't really figured it out because I haven't got the manual for it yet. But that'll be coming soon.
I was going to join in. I was going to join in on the sax.
Oh well, yeah, okay. Well,
I ain't got anything. I think that.
you've got your track is the background,
Oh, okay, fine. I've done my
which
bit.
everything could just be completely out of time. Yeah. Anyway, folks, thank you very much for watching. That was the end of that Sonic Talk episode 541. Gosh, not 451, 541. Thanks for watching. See you next time. I think that's the end. Hold on, just switching out. I don't know what happened to the Facebook live stream is just really pants. I don't know whether it even worked. I just looked and there was a frozen frame on it, but I can't monitor it at the same time. So
Are you using Restream for that, Nick?
I am, but Restream has been fine for like a year. You know, it's the Facebook thing. I had to switch over to running on Firefox because it stopped working on Chrome, and it's just honestly, what a pain. Anyway. You know, what can you say?
Google, look at this news. Google hit with 3.8 billion fine by the EU for abusing control of Android OS.
Whoa.
That's a massive 3.8 billion fine.
I think there'll be some negotiation.